Hey guys, it's Megan. Welcome back to my home library. Today I have a fever. I've been sick for days and I thought, you know what? I'll just wait until I'm not sick and film this video. Apparently that day is just never going to come, so we're just going to do it now even though I feel pretty bad. The good news is that I read 11 books this month, so it was actually a pretty good reading month. The only bad news is that the star ratings were not great. I'll show you my average. Well, I had one that I didn't give a rating to, which I'll tell you about in a minute. I gave I gave one book 2 stars. 2 books, 2.5 stars, 3 books, 3 stars, 1 book, 3.5 stars, and 2 books, 4 stars. So at least I had 2 4-star reads. I read 8 adult books, 1 middle grade, and 2 children's books, which I'm like, how did that happen? Because I don't ever read children's books. One was an accident. I did not know it was children's. I read 2 autobiographies. How crazy. 1 romance, 1 mystery, 1 nonfiction, and then 4 fantasy. So that seems about right. I read 6 audiobooks, 2 ebooks, and 1 physical book. So that is definitely like 3 were kind of more physical, which is more than usual that I can read in a month because I'm actually, off in the summer since I work at a school. I read, 5 were in a series, and 2 or 3 of them I'm going to probably continue the series. They were all new to me authors, so that was interesting, and 7 female authors and 2 male authors. So just kind of some interesting statistics. Also, I read 3,469 pages, and not including the 1 book that I did DNF. That I didn't count in those page numbers. So I actually read over 3,500 pages, which I'm like, how? So this time, let's just go in order because I'm tired and I don't want to try to think of another way to do this. I'm literally like burning up. First, I read Paris, the Memoir, which seems like so long ago at this point. I really do feel like it's been forever ago, maybe because I've read so many books in the middle. But I loved this book. I gave it 4 stars. It was one of my only 4-star reads of the month. Technically, then one of the best books I read this month. I loved it. I don't know why. I've always been fascinated by Paris Hilton. Apparently, I like celebrity autobiographies. I've read a lot lately. In fact, spoiler alert, there's going to be another one on this list in just a minute. I like celebrity memoirs. This one was really enlightening about the troubled teen industry, which I'd heard about because I had a student at my school in my English 101 class do a research paper on it. So I'd already heard about it and heard that Paris Hilton had been to one of these like wilderness camps or whatever they're called. And not just one, but multiple. And they kept getting worse and worse and worse. It's terrible. It's like being in a prison and you're terribly abused. And anyway, she went through a lot and now she's an activist about it and very outspoken. But just to read about her whole life, it was so interesting. I don't know why, because like I said, I used to love Paris Hilton. I don't know why. I watched The Simple Life when I was younger. So I actually really enjoyed this book. It's read by her and her real voice is so different than her fake like high-pitched voice that she does on camera. And so it was really good. Next book was called The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. Why would I read this, you ask? Well, it is a romance, but the only reason I read it is because it's set at a theme park. When I learned it's basically a Disney World, they call it Dreamland, but it's literally in Orlando, so it's clearly Disney World. And the main love interest basically runs the company, or he's going to inherit it. And when I learned that was the kind of setup and that she's one of the main girls, like one of the employees there, and that part of it takes place at the park, like they literally ride a ride that is basically the Haunted Mansion. I think it's called something else, but I do wish there had been more scenes at the park, obviously. But all in all, it was pretty decent. I wish the title was more like, I know it's called The Fine Print, and I think the books in the rest of the series are also like more like riding themed or something, but I feel like it should be theme park themed titles. But anyway, for a romance, giving it 3 stars, I mean, that's pretty good coming from me. Then I read A Curious Beginning by Veronica Speedwell. This was a mystery. This was my only other 4-star read. Oh, here comes Ella, my dog. I heard her just open the door, so she's barging in on me. But this is the first of a series that I believe has a lot of books in this series now. I'm not even sure how many. Did I write it down? 1 of 8? Yeah, there's 8 books so far, and I think there's going to be more. There's like 1 a year. They're pretty short little mysteries, and considering it was not fantasy, but also like historical and set in the, 1800s, 1900s? I honestly don't remember. It's been so long since I read it. 1887 in London. That I was shocked how much I actually really enjoyed this. For me, it was the characters. They were so witty. The banter was so witty. I really, really enjoyed this book, and I'm going to continue this series, and I highly recommend it to anybody who wants that witty, funny banter and just really clever writing. Then I accidentally read a children's book. I read Rainbow Gray by, I don't even know the author's name, Laura Ellen Anderson. And I only read this because it has the word rainbow in the title. And for Kayla from Books and Lala, her Buzzwordathon challenge, which I think I actually have right here somewhere. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, I have it right here. It's bad because I folded it in half. But anyway, it tells you like what things you have to read each month. And for the month of July, it was weather words. So I decided to read rainbow gray, and it turns out that it was a children's book. And for a children's book, honestly, it was fine. Like, it was very Harry Potter-esque because they're at a school that's kind of like Hogwarts, except with like weather stuff and weather magic, and so I like that. I think I would have enjoyed it better if it had been more like middle grade, but I mean, that's not what it is. So anyway, it was fine. Oh, and I gave it 3 stars, and it's a series, and I probably won't continue it. Then I accidentally read another children's book. It was a graphic novel, or illustrated children's book. I don't even know what you call it if it's a children's book that's illustrated. But anyway, this is The Tea Dragon Society by Katie O'Neill. It's a little cute fantasy. It's very homey, very low stakes, kind of like Legends and Lattes or something, except for children, because it's literally about these little tea dragons. But it had a little message and it was cute. I could see where, you know, my son would like it when he gets a little bit older. The pictures, the illustrations were really pretty. And I read this because for my own summer reading challenge that I made for school, since, you know, I'm a school librarian, for the students and the staff, one of the challenges, the only one I had not completed, I was trying to complete every single one. There's like 11 on this theme park themed challenge, and the only one I had not completed was to read a book that has a summery food or drink on the cover. And I decided that tea for me was summery. Now this was like hot tea, but whatever, it's fine. So I had to find a book with a hot, you know, a summery beverage or drink on the, or food on the cover. I didn't want one with ice cream because they were all like silly little romances and I wanted something quick. So I had this on my TBR already, and that's why I decided to read it. Fun fact, I read this in like an hour, waiting on my husband to get his appendix removed. So I was watching him writhe in pain in the emergency room while I read this book. And I gave it 3 stars. I think it's a series. Yeah, 1 of 3, and I probably will not be continuing. Then I read a book that I started, I think even in June. It took me a long time to read this book, so I don't even remember very much about it at this point, but it was called The Secret Lives of Introverts. It's nonfiction by Jean Graneman. I give it 3.5 stars because I do think it's more for people who have just discovered that they're introverts, or like young people who just want to know a little bit more about introverts or something. But it was nice to feel like, oh, I can resonate with this book. Also, I realized that maybe I'm not as much of an introvert as I thought. Like, I thought I was super introverted, but I took some of the quizzes, and yes, I mean, I'm definitely an introvert, but and I did like the quizzes in the book too. There were several, and I learned like there's like 4 different types of introverts, and I learned which 2 types I am primarily, and the other 2 I wasn't like at all. I made my husband take the quiz too. I don't think he thought it was very fun, but it was very enlightening to learn that I think my husband's more like literally halfway in the middle, because it's really a spectrum of introvert and extrovert, and you're somewhere on the spectrum. You're not just all one side or the other. But I was not as much of an introvert as I thought. But this book, I mean, it was interesting. Then I read 2 books back to back that I regret. And that is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This was long. I listened to the audiobook, but it only took me like 2.5 days to read it because I sped it up to like 2 times speed and had a lot of listening time. This is my school library copy. Oh my gosh, this book was so boring. I know it's supposed to be about video games, and it doesn't matter if you like video games or not. It's still going to be good. I think this book is for people that don't really care about video. Like, they don't care one way or the other, because I, as a video game fan, I thought, ooh, that's why I'll like it. No, it didn't have enough video game stuff for me. It's just about these characters' lives, and that's it. Like, there's nothing going for it. I didn't find any of the characters very compelling. I didn't find the plot very interesting. It covers a long period of time in their lives, and I just didn't really care about really anything that happened. And how this book has won so many awards, and I think it won the Goodreads Choice Award last year just for Best Fiction, New York Times Best Bestseller. It's blurbed by like everybody and their brother, and I don't know, I didn't get it. The second mistake, and I thought it was for sure it was going to be better than Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which I gave 2.5 stars. Yeah. Nope, gave this one 2.5 stars too. And that is Remarkably Bright Creatures. Why do I do this to myself? I should know not to read realistic fiction. But right before I started this book, somebody said, I've read something online that was like, oh, but it's a mystery. It's an octopus, you know, that's like really smart, and it helps this woman to solve a mystery. And I was like, oh, well, now that part sounds cool. No, that's like not the main, I don't even feel like that's the main plot. I feel like if it had been, that would have been interesting. But there's so much about characters in here that you don't care about. Like, if it just focused on, there are chapters from the octopus's point of view, which I loved. And there was like a different narrator for him. I loved his point of view chapters because he is a really smart octopus. So it was pretty funny. I even like the old lady. I mean, she's an old woman, which is kind of cool. I think she's like in her 70s, and she's getting ready to retire and maybe move to this, like, you know, community home that can take care of her. And anyway, she was a pretty interesting character compared to everybody else in the story. Everybody else in the story kept going to like this other character's point of view who you didn't care about at all. And it was so obvious who this character was going to be. Like, I can't tell you because obviously that'd be a spoiler, but it's like the answer to the mystery. And it's like, well, duh, this character's that person. So you're just kind of like waiting for it all to come together. So one, there wasn't really any mystery. You're just waiting on her to figure it out. You know, the octopus is going to help her figure it out because it basically tells you that in the plot summary. So like, what's the point of reading this book? I don't know. I knew everything that was going to happen right off the bat. So didn't care for it. Then I read a book that I did not give a rating to just because I didn't think it'd be fair, and that is Beyond the Wand by Tom Felton. So this is my other celebrity memoir, and it's, I thought it was mostly about his time filming Harry Potter. Obviously, he's Draco Malfoy in the Harry Potter movies. I thought it was going to be more about just the Harry Potter time, and it does focus mostly on that time period in his life, but it does have a lot of stuff that happened like to get him famous before Harry Potter and some stuff that happened after Harry Potter. I'd say like 50% of the book at least was like around the Harry Potter movies and his interactions with the actors. That was kind of cool. Some of their conversations they had were really fun. And then I'd say maybe 25% of the book at the beginning, 25% of the book at the end, somewhere around that, were like the rest of his life. So it was pretty short too. Like for somebody that probably has a lot of things going on in his life, it was only 288 pages, but it was good. I just don't feel like I could rate it. I mean, it just wouldn't be fair. I know I rated Paris Hilton's, which makes no sense. And I pretty much rate all autobiographies just based on like my enjoyment of them. So if I had to rate it, it'd be like 3.5 maybe, because it was good. I mean, I had a good time, but how can you rate somebody's life? And yes, I rated Paris Hilton's life, so it doesn't make any sense. But this one, I just didn't feel like I could rate it. So yeah, there we are. 2 books to go. Biggest disappointment possibly of the year, besides maybe the Grady Hendrix book, How to Sell a Haunted House, is The Malevolent Seven by Sebastian de Castell. I've never read anything by this author before, and I'm going to give him another shot because I know he has that Trader's Blade series that like everybody talks about. So, is that what it's called? I think the first book's called The Trader's Blade. I don't remember what the series is called. But anyway, this was a standalone fantasy, and it's about 7 like morally gray characters who have to team up and go on a quest, but it takes forever to get the team together. It takes over half the book. You were over half the book just getting the team together, and then it's like, okay, now we can save the world. And I wish they'd gotten together faster so that we could just hurry up and get to the save the world plot, because it was really the only part that I found very interesting at all. I did not like this book. I gave it 2 stars. I would have DNF'd it. I mean, I would 100% have DNF'd this about 45% of the way through, except that I was so close to finishing it and I wanted to do it for a different video, and well, not finishing it, but it was close to the end of the month and I thought, ooh, I could get another book read. I'll let my reading stats affect me because I want to get to 100 books this year. And I was like, oh, I'll just finish it, whatever. It honestly did get a little bit better at the end once the actual like plot kicked in. But no, this book was not for me. It's supposed to be funny. I didn't really laugh. The characters were boring. The main character, I guess, was the most interesting, although he didn't really seem that morally gray. It honestly seemed like it was trying to be like the Dresden Files, but not near as good. So if you want something better than this, just go read the Dresden Files. Finally, the last book I read was Unseen Magic by Emily Lloyd Jones. This book took me 4 weeks to read. And this is a middle grade that is like 300 pages. So it's because it's physical and I just don't have time to read physically. There's just not time in my life for that. So I read this for another video I'm going to do where I am going to be reading a lot of Emily Lloyd Jones's books, like at least 3 of them, and just telling you what I think about her, because I've never read her as an author, but her books keep getting on my radar. I really want to read The Bone Houses, which sounded really good, and that's been on my radar forever. And Elusive, which is kind of like, sounds like Vicious by V.E. Schwab, kind of reminds me of that. So, or like X-Men or something. So I really want to read those 2. So I thought, you know what, I'll start off with her middle grade. And it was pretty cute. I think I gave it 3. Yeah, I gave it 3 stars. Honestly, if I'd read it faster and not taken so long to read it, maybe I would have given it like 3.5 stars. There's a sequel. I think there's going to be more too, and I might continue. I mean, maybe, because it was cute. It's very whimsical and fun. And yes, I read a lot of books about tea apparently, because in this one, there's like a tea monster, a monster made out of tea leaves, and like literally has like these tea ball things for eyes. And anyway, yeah, it was cute and it had a lot of lessons in it. And the middle kind of dragged on a little bit, but I do like this little part on the back. I'll just read you this. It says, so this is what you have to do in this town that they live in. It's set in the real world, so it is like urban fantasy, because then there's like a magical town within the real world, so I like that. The town's called Aldemir, and it says you have to pay the ravens, or else. An unlabeled door can lead to nowhere, so you have to make sure your doors have labels. No one knows the price of the old toll bridge. Burn nothing within the town borders, and don't look for the tea shop, which moves around, and only if you know where it's at can you get to it. So I like all the kind of whimsical world building and stuff like that too. So I do recommend it. I think it was pretty cute for a middle grade. So those are the 11 books I read in July. I feel like I said, it was a pretty good reading month for me. Now I'm going to lay down and rest my throat because it hurts and try to get this fever down. And let me know down below if you've read any of these books and if you agreed, if you also thought some of them were overhyped, like Remarkably Bright Creatures and Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. Anyway, I will talk to you guys again later. Bye.